there is a wealth of content online for external models and entourage models for Rhino. Some are free, some are paid for, but majority of what you'll need you can get without needing to go behind a paywall. And really, there are so many different types of platforms out there, but just a few that I'll share with you. And really, it's something that you'll go through and you'll work out what works for you, what doesn't, and which ones are free, which ones are not, the quality of the free models, etc. But the first one would be CG Trader, and CG Trader has been around for yonks, and they have 3D models. They'll have you'll see their stuff a lot with lots of materials as well, and material libraries. Their range is extensive. The only thing to remember with these guys is that majority of their content is not free. So the quality of free content really varies from website to website. Some it's really good. Others, there's no doubt that the paid versions or the paid models are much better. But look, really, it's just what works for you at that given time. So CG Trader is a great resource. I've used them before, and they're very high quality models. The next one is Render People. As the name implies, it is predominantly people, humans and otherwise, that are modeled. You can see the amount of different softwares that they have been optimized for, including Rhino. And if you go just up to free models, we click on that, you'll see there's a couple of samples of free people. So you have the 3D people, you have 3D rigid people, which I imagine is like that because there could be softwares where you then trigger their movements. You have animated people and 4D people, which I'm not sure exactly what that means. But you can see down here, you have two different types. Like, say with the free 3D people, you got two types of versions. You have 100,000 poly count and a 30,000 poly count. I'll get into that shortly, what exactly that means. And they're 8K high res textures, and you also standard 2K versions as well. We've downloaded these before. A lot of students have downloaded these free packs before, and they work very well. Now with this assignment, because we are photoshopping a lot of the entourage and the people, don't feel like you have to put people models in there. They can be very heavy and they can slow down your model greatly, but nonetheless, always good to have as a reference for future use. The next one is TurboSquid. TurboSquid is another very popular both texturing and modeling platform. I won't go through like the full interfaces of these platforms because they're very intuitive, and I'm sure you'll work them out. But be aware that most of them require you to create a login, and the login doesn't mean that you're paying for anything, but you do need to have a login, create an account just to be able to download. But TurboSquid, again, very, very high res models. Some of these you can take a look. Even if I just click on cars, you'll see that some of these are very, very high res, and they're used by some of these are modeled by the manufacturer as well, that are used for commercials. There are plenty there that are open source as well, but the cost of these models can actually be very exorbitant. Like, you take a look at here, the Porsche Taycan is $164, and I think that will be American. So there is rational basis for the high cost of these models, because architecture firms will definitely have a lot of these in a pack, or a visualization company for sure will have packs of these. But because they're using them on a recurring basis, there's almost like a return on investment. Whether for yourselves you're using these once or twice, I wouldn't be wasting my time too much with paying for models, unless you think you're going to use them on an ongoing basis. And they don't all have to be like $164. Sometimes you'll find really good models that are like $10 or $15 or something like that. But you're under no obligation to pay for any of these models at any point, though. The next one is GrabCAD. This one is probably more of a crowdsourced platform, and you'll find that there are lots of different types in here that are quite random in nature. There is a lot of stuff that's been optimized for 3D printing. So the types of models you might see here are probably not your traditional, I don't know, furniture and fixtures and appliances, but you might find some interesting stuff in here as well, and it's definitely worth a shot. And see, GrabCAD, by contrast, is predominantly free content rather than predominantly paid. 3D Sky is yet again another one, sort of similar to TurboSquid, where there are a lot, there are free models, although the majority are paid for, and they also have a lot of high-res textures as well. You can, with all of these platforms, you can filter them by free models as well when you go searching for an item. Just be aware that the content will be pretty light and the quality won't be as high, but you will find a couple of gems here and there. The second last one is actually BIM Object, and BIM Object is great because the range is massive, they're all free, and they're usually either in a Revit format or a DWG format, which can be read, either one can be read by Rhino. The only thing to consider is that most of the time the modeling is lower res because it is meant for BIM software rather than visualization, and the textures are probably not as high res as some of these other platforms, but a very good reference nonetheless. And finally, the best reference, or the best resource in my personal opinion, is actually SketchUp's 3D Warehouse. Everything here is free, super high, they can have very high quality models, super rich with content, both from crowdsource but also manufacturer content, and works very well with Rhino as well. So in order to, the one that I will go through will be 3D Warehouse. So sign in and create a profile, and then let's take a look at how to search for models, what to consider, and then how to download them and install them into Rhino. Okay, we've signed in, created an account with 3D Warehouse, which by the way is a Trimble product. So when you create an account, don't be surprised if you see the word Trimble, the brand Trimble. That's now who owns SketchUp. So across the top, you have your search bar. So in this instance, I need to search for a wall oven. So I'm just going to search Samsung as an example and hit enter. And by default, you'll see that I'm searching here for all categories. And that's fine, but underneath of that, once you search for something, you have these tabs under here: products, collection, products, models, collections, and catalogs. Really, the first two is where it's at. Products has to do with content that has come from the manufacturer themselves. It doesn't mean it was modeled by the manufacturer, but it means it's endorsed and is a part of like their product line. So this is where you'll see generally high quality models and well textured models as well. But not every supplier has their catalog on 3D Warehouse. Next to that is models. So look, the products are still models, but you can notice a key difference straight away is that this doesn't exactly represent all of Samsung's products. The difference between products and models, products again means that it's official, they're official items that are endorsed by the supplier or by the manufacturer. Models just means it's random content. So there's nothing stopping me from modeling a foot and then uploading it and using the hashtag Samsung, and then it would appear in this search bar. But plenty of people do model very good models to send up. So, I mean, I don't understand how this wooden ramp with a woman is called Samsung, but then I do understand how this TV is a Samsung TV, or Samsung's headquarters in South Korea. I don't understand that. But the point is that the model category, which is again open source made by the people, is rich with content. I mean, I guarantee you can type in anything into this search bar and you will find someone that's tried to model something. In this instance, I'm going to stick with the products, but we will do something with models as well. And you can see there's a range of TVs here and air conditioners. I'm going to take a wall oven, and I'm going to take, say, this dual wall oven. In fact, I'm going to take the black one. So I'm going to click on that, and when I click on that, it's going to bring up a window to do with that model. Now, a few things to consider. Firstly, underneath that, you've got the download option, which we'll click on last. Under that, we have the materials. So there's 5 different materials inside of this model. That's probably 5 different textures. Polygons is 159. Now that's very, very low, and that's fantastic because what that means is, see, the model size underneath is only 295 kilobytes. That's like the size of a Word document, slightly bigger than a Word document. you will find, and we will take a look shortly, that some of these models are massive, like hundreds of thousands of polygons. And if you take a look at your Rhino file right now before you start putting in external models, I imagine your Rhino file is somewhere between 7 megabytes and maybe 30 megabytes at the very most. More than likely between 7 and 15 megabytes. As soon as you start putting in some of these larger files, it's not uncommon for like a car or a high polygon human person that gets imported will be around 40 megabytes. So like up to 3 times the size of your actual model. It may not seem like a big deal in this scenario, and it's probably not when we're dealing with such a small building. But just keeping in mind that it's very common for, say, an architectural firm to have a tower that they're modeling like a 50, 60 story building, and that Rhino model will be around 250 to 300 megabytes. Anything above that, and it starts getting a little bit slow, unless you've got a supercomputer. You will find some firms that will just have crazy models that are like a gigabyte or something like that, but you're going to need a really good computer for that. Even then, I've seen them crash so many times because they've just not been kept. They haven't been well kept. So keep that in mind. In terms of polygons, there's no right or wrong. Just be wary of how many polygons the model has when you download it. Okay, and then underneath that's just the date modified, which is not all that important really. Then we click on download, and you'll see you have the different file formats. So all of the SketchUp formats, a GLB file format and Collada. I don't even know what those two are, but I don't really care. Just the SketchUp models. A little tip for you, choose the oldest version of SketchUp possible that's available. Doesn't matter if it's only 2022, but just a good rule of thumb, just in case there's any like bugs or glitches in the newer version. So I'm going to click on that and then click on, there we go. And that's now down in my downloads folder. We can see at the bottom of the screen as a native SKP file, which is a native SketchUp file. All right, so next tip, open up a blank file, just an empty Rhino file, and this is going to be your this will be your sandbox file, your testing ground, whatever you want to call it. The important component here is that before you just go importing models inside of your Rhino file, you want to import them into a blank space in case A, it's not the model you want, B, it's corrupt and has some sort of virus or glitch in it, or C, is actually quite a messy model. And it's like an exploded model with millions of different components that are all that aren't actually stuck together. The really important one here is probably the first one, which is just if you decide that you don't like this model, because you can delete a model after the fact. If we import that Samsung oven and then we decide to delete it, it might be graphically deleted, but the data and the model information still lives in that model somewhere. Even if I purge the model, it will still be buried in there somewhere. And that's how you get to like hundreds of megabyte size files or gigabyte size files. So it's very important to open up a blank space first. Plus it also helps you create a bit of a library for next time. So you can see here these tables, chairs, TVs, cooktops, lamps, and even the Porsche, the car. I'll just take these from project to project because again, it's kind of like your Photoshop textures. You don't need 101 textures. You just need enough content there that gives you some context and you're pretty much good to go. So with this blank Rhino file open, I'm just going to use the command import, okay, and then hit spacebar, or I can do that same process by going file and then import. Now again, with Rhino, we have access to like 48, I think, different importing file types, which is just fabulous, including native, you'll see that here, native .skp files, native SketchUp files, which again is brilliant because it means the textures come with the file. So I'm just going to navigate to my downloads and it'll be the first thing there. There it is there, Samsung dual cook oven. Click on that, click open. These imported options, 99.99% of the time, don't touch anything, just click OK. And at the 00 point, there is my Samsung oven. So there we are there. That looks pretty good. All right, but you'll notice when I start clicking on these items, they're all selecting as individual meshes. In this case, Rhino is selecting them, or they are mesh models, which makes sense because SketchUp is a mesh-based software. It even has here, I can't even pronounce that, but probably the model maker, the copyright model maker. Now, That is a really nice model. Very simply textured, just an image on the front. But again, when we're sitting back here and we've got like our different camera angles, you're never even going to notice that. And I think that's actually quite an effective model and a very light model. So what I'll do first thing is I want to select everything, and I just want to double check in the properties what layer it's on, and it's on layer 0. This is pretty common. A lot of this stuff is just going to appear on layer 0, and it's a pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new layer. And I'm just going to call this one oven. And I'm going to select this oven. And I'm going to explode it. And then explode it again. And explode it again. Alright. Looks like nothing's really happened. But we have got things now down to like the group level. So I'm going to ungroup it as well. I'll ungroup. And then I'll ungroup it again. So maybe just a good checklist for yourselves is select your model, explode twice, select your model again, ungroup twice. We're basically trying to strip this model right back to just being individual meshes, and you can see how many meshes there are. There must be, well, there's 159 polygons, but I'm not sure, that could be more meshes. So now what I'm going to do is just select them all, and I'm going to right click on oven and go change where are we? Can we change? There we go. Change object to layer. Oops. I don't want the floor. I just want the oven. Change object to layer. Okay, that's now done. And we can see now in the properties window that it's 82 open meshes and they are on the oven layer. And let's just double check that. I'm going to turn off the oven. Beautiful. And they're all turning off. It is not unusual that if something was on layer 0, you turn the oven off and some piece of the oven is still turned on, even though you just selected the model and turned it onto the oven layer. This is a very important reason why you need to explode and ungroup the model first to do that. This may seem a bit tedious, but trust me, you'll thank yourself later for it. Plus, it means that once you've done this once, and once you save this in your like testing ground or your sandbox, you've got this on an ongoing basis, and you can have confidence that your model is nice and clean. Which again, trust me, when you're doing your design classes, you just want that. You want that trust in your model that you've got control of, it's nice and clean. All right, so I'll take that, and now I've switched the layer. Last thing to do is just to group it. So I'll just go Control G. And that's now one grouped box or one group model, which I can move all at once. That's brilliant. Perfect. Now, because on the oven layer, it's going to come across and it's going to copy that layer with it. So I'll just click on the oven, Control C. Here's my current project file. It looks quite different to last time. I've actually been working a fair amount on that. I am going to be smart and change this back to shaded mode. Go to my top view and go Control V. And you'll see it will appear around the 0, point, which is this corner of the building there. So there's my oven. And, it's just a case of clicking and dragging it, rotating it position. So I wanted my oven in this, so here's the breakfast bench. I want the oven in this sidebar just over here. So I'll rotate that 90 degrees. Perfect. And project is on, so that's fine. So I'm going to go move from this point here. Oh, help if I had... Nice. I'll just move that across a bit. Nice. Get back to perspective. There it is on the floor. I'll move that up 900. There we go. Okay, that looks good. Now if I turn that back to my rendered mode, there's my wall oven inside of my joinery. And, I'm just having a bit of a play here, but I could just copy that twice on top of one and the other, because I really like to cook. I like to eat. Okay, so something like that. I mean, you can do it whatever you like. I'm going to delete that because that's not realistic. But you will see that we do have an oven layer here, which is great. That's come in with us. So that's actually fantastic. I'm going to move that up another 200. Okay. All right, so we have our wall oven. You'll notice that I've already placed a bunch of models in here, from like a fruit bowl through to my cooktop. I've got a plant here, which is pretty high polygon count. You can see when I click on it, you can see all the meshes. That's all the polygons. So that's a pretty high count, but I think that's quite a nice looking model. and even my wine fridge here. Again, this was all using just SketchUp Warehouse and just typing in the items that I want and going through that cleanup process. Keep in mind as well that how you want to categorize these is entirely up to you. So I have a layer here which is just called oven, and I can turn that oven on and off. But you can have furniture based on other items. So if you want to have furniture, you can see here all of the lighting is on one layer. Or you could have like all your loose furniture is on one layer, or maybe it's just your entire living room and kitchen areas on one layer. It's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong, but just be thoughtful about it and make sure that your model is nice and clean. Okay, so that is our Samsung oven. Next up, let's take a look at a car back in SketchUp Warehouse and go through some heavier polygon models. So I'm going to go back to SketchUp Warehouse, and let's search for an Audi SUV of some sort. So if I type in Audi, you'll see there's some Audi cars here under products and some chairs apparently. I'm not sure why. But if we go to models, we're going to see there's going to be a lot more. There'll be a lot more selection. You'll see that there. Okay. And these are pretty low res. They're not bad, but they're pretty low res. What happens if we go Mercedes? Okay, so we have the Mercedes factory, Mercedes cars. Let's go Mercedes SUV. What about that? Okay, that's a little bit better. You can see the variance in the quality of model from something like this through to something like this. And if I click on products, are there anything there? No. And that's not uncommon. The products there's much less products, official products, than there are just generic models. But yeah, look, I'm just searching through here. The G-Wagon's not too bad. That's not too bad, that one there. Let's take a look at this car, the GLB. So I'll click on that. It's not bad. Okay, but this is mainly what I wanted to show you. So there's 27 materials in this model. There is 200,000 polygons, and the model size is 38 megabytes. This is exactly what I mean by it's a very heavy model. But it could be because it's a very detailed model. They may have modeled all the interiors and the wheels and the brakes and everything looks all really good. But don't be surprised that you can download some of these models and they're actually just rubbish still. So more polygons and bigger model size does not equal better. It really doesn't. So, but let's take a look anyway. So I'm going to download this 2019 SketchUp file. That will then prompt the download to start. And then let's open up the sandbox. Okay, so that's now done. I've got my Porsche over here. I've already downloaded before. Let's go import. It hasn't even finished downloading yet. Almost there. Okay, I think that's done now. Alright, there it is. Open. Okay. Whoops. I did something wrong there. Alright, there we go. There's the car. And there's a good example of some problems already. So, number one. I think it's to scale, but I feel like it could be a little bit bigger. Number two problem is that you can't see inside the car. It's just blacked out. That is rubbish for a model of this size. And if I hide the windows, you can see there's nothing inside the car. You can hear my computer starting up as well. Number three is that it's imported as individual meshes. So like wheels, tires, individual panels, everything's just imported as one item. So even to select it, to make it a group is going to be a pain. And I tell you what, if I want to explode this and ungroup it to then put it on the right layer and regroup it, because notice it's on layer 0, that is going to be one hell of a time. I mean, to the point that it's just, to me, not tangible. So I'm going to remove that. I'll just go Control Z, and it basically removes it from the project. And remember, this is the sandbox, so who cares? If this ends up getting bloated, this model file ends up corrupting, doesn't actually matter. So that's a bad choice, that car there. But if I go to the Porsche Macan is one of them I downloaded. Again, products, there's nothing there. Porsche hasn't endorsed any models specifically. But if I go to models, you can see there's a bunch here that are quite highly modeled. I don't think it's that one, but see, that's a very big model, that 114,000 polygons and 44 megabytes, big file. Anyway, within here, you will find some models that work for you. Just keep searching until you do. And then I've downloaded this one here. And this one's actually quite efficient. It's only... I think from memory, it's about 15 megabytes and about 20,000 polygons. Now, it's still big, but for a car, that's quite light. And it does the job. There's a bit of an interior. It's low res, but again, it does the job. And when you're looking at it in a rendering perspective, and the car's about this big on the screen, the difference in a couple 100,000 polygons is definitely worth the saving in model size, because you can't tell the difference here anyway. Okay, so... let's go back to Rhino and take a look here. So the rest of our model items are there. Some of these are actually individually modeled as well, as in like I've modeled them, and I'll go through that separately shortly. But let's take a look at some other items like chairs and sofas. So going back to, let's go chart warehouse, 3D warehouse, and I'll just type in sofa. Models, and you'll see there's just a bunch here by default. Now, the other thing too is the good thing about this is that you can amend them however you like. So let's find, I'm doing this on the fly, so you have to forgive me if this takes me a little while to find one that's decent. What about lounge? Products. Okay, so there's some companies that have saved their content. All right, I like... that's pretty good. That one's very good. I'm not sure how realistic that's going to be. What about that one? Okay, so let's take a look at something like this. So this is actually pretty good. 25,000 polygons, but only 4 megabytes. That's nice and light. What we can do as well is when you find good modelers, you should stick with them. So if you find a couple of models that are very good quality and low poly count and low model size, then you should try and find more content from that modeler or modeler company or modeling company, sorry. And the way you do that is just click on that item, and then I'm going to click on See More Detail. And it opens it up like on another page, and design Davila. And you can see models by this author. You can click on this and you can click on See More, and we can take a look at more of those models by this company or this author. So let's click on that and let's see what else. Okay, so I'm seeing some side tables, lots of side tables. Wow, there's actually a lot of content here. That is a lot of side tables. Okay, some bar stools. So this is actually a very good one, I think. Just from the sheer volume of selection here. I'll tell you what. Is there another? The bar stools would be useful. I'm going to stick with the couch just so I can go through some processes of modifying the blocks as well, or editing these blocks. That coffee table is pretty nifty. I'm going to open up that in a new tab. Oh, does that work? Yes, that does. Okay, so I can click on the picture and it says open up a 3D model. So what it's doing right now is it's opening up essentially like a little model window that we can preview this model within the website. There we go. How else? Okay, so that's not great. I imagine there's probably some piece of material here that we're missing. We're going to give this a shot. Why not? We can give this a shot. So firstly, this sofa, let's download that. So go download SketchUp 2019. That shouldn't take too long. I'm going to do the same thing with this one as well. Download 2019. And that's both ready to go. So let's open up our sandbox model. Okay. Import. And I can click only one at a time. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to move this aside. Okay, so, alright, I see what they've done here. So, firstly, take a look, there's some sort of backing board here. I imagine that that's probably, it's either going to be like a backing board for the render scene when they've actually taken the render shot. So you've got like a backlight or something. This is usually applicable in other rendering softwares. Sometimes it can be an image of the product as well, or sometimes it can just be something that you have no idea what the hell that is. So I'm just going to click and delete that. But notice this happens a lot too, especially when the model layers are like dirty. I click on this big backdrop and notice that my TV is selecting because they've grouped together somehow. I have no idea how. So I'm going to ungroup that. Okay, now that item just selects by itself. You can see the TV is not selected. I'm going to delete that. This is another reason why bringing them into your sandbox is so important. Also another reason why cleaning up these models is so important. If I could take a guess of what's happened, it's probably because this TV I grouped a long time ago and I didn't give it a name. So by default, Rhino will just call it group 1 or group 2 or group whatever. And then when another group comes in that's also called grouped 1 or group 1 because it was done in another software, it sort of finds a relationship. It's like, oh, well, you're group 1 and my group of objects are group 1. So now we're both group 1 kind of thing. So when you select it, it now selects both these groups that you never actually made. A little bit confusing, but just a good example of why you've got to be so thoughtful in this sort of modeling environment. So what they've done with the couch here is essentially it's just a modular system. So I'm pretty sure we can just start, I'm just eyeballing this, but we can start putting these together. And you can see there, even like the cord, the tube is its own model. So again, this is why the modeling sandbox is so important. So I'll do something like that. And then let's do that again. I'm going to take this and just move these to the side. And I'll take this and just copy this across. And I'm just eyeballing this because it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then these here, I imagine are like some sort of like backrest. Okay, and because this is its own object, I can just extend it like that. In fact, I might just extend it. Something like that. And I can take these pillows. Now I can just copy them across like that. And I can take all three and then copy them across again. Something like that. And then this is a corner. Okay, it's close enough. And then I could even take a copy of that. Rotate it 90 degrees. Do something like that, and I got like a chase sofa now, just from that one group or that one set of components. Now that's pretty messy. I've just been eyeballing it. You'll take your time and you'll sort of go into each of your views and line them all up and make them all look neat and tidy. But that's really cool how it's a modular component, because that gives us a range of options. Now we can rematerialize these as well to the quality. I'm not sure how good we'll get, but we'll give it a go anyway. So I'm going to click on one of these sofas. I'm going to click on the material icon, and you'll see that material number 25 is assigned. If I click on this drop down box too, you'll remember a long time ago when we started materializing, I said that it's really important that we be very careful about how we materialize and use a prefix, because when we start importing all these models, you're going to get a ton of materials that come in with it. And you can see that now. Take a look at how many material ones there are alone, and look at all these different materials here. Even that Mercedes, even though we deleted it, you can see that the Mercedes materials are still in this model file. Again, a big reason why the sandbox is so important. Take a look at all these textures here, which is random numbers and codes. You have no idea what the hell they are. So very important. So here, the color underneath this material 25, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to go down here and assign a texture. And why not? I'm going to give it a asphalt texture. And how does that look? Oh, you can actually see it. But we're going to have to change the mapping of this texture somehow. How are we going to do that? Because mapping is not an option. Because it's a mesh, it's harder to you can't use like a UVW map. So maybe we have to look. Let's just change the material just for argument's sake and see if we can make something work. Fabrics, and let's choose this pink. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, that's not too bad. And then I'll just make sure that it's all on a clean layer. So properties wise, what layer are we on? We are on we've got 15 block instances on layer 0. So again, explode once, explode twice. It says here, exploding this mesh will create 1,600 individual meshes, and this may even be more than your system can safely manage using available memory. Good example of why, again, saving your file, being very careful, using a sandbox file is very important. I'll do that. And let's just wait and see. Okay, that's now done. That's good. But the model is pretty well broken down. It's now 9,000 individual, nearly 10,000 open meshes. So I'm going to ungroup and select and ungroup. And now I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this one sofa. Right click, change objects to this layer. Turn off the sofa layer. Nice and clean. Select all those items. They are clearly 9,765 open meshes are on the sofa layer, and I am going to group them back up. That is now grouped. I can take that and I can copy that and bring that into my actual production model. Go paste. Now I'm playing a dangerous game here. I'm modeling in rendered mode, and that can be risky. You can probably hear my computer in the background really running over time now. I'll flick that around, and then this other sofa. Let's get rid of this one. I got my coffee table there, so that's not quite working. I'll have to do a bit of movement there with a book on it. And then let's go through my save shots just to see how that looks. Oh yeah, there's the new sofa there. Oh, and it's freezing. It's not too bad. I have my ceiling hidden too, so I'll turn my ceiling layer back on. There we go. Even that shot, that looks pretty cool, that new sofa. Alright, excellent. And finally, let's just import, go back to our sandbox. And let's just import that table and see how that came up. Okay, so there's that table. No, okay, so there was no glass that came with it. And it is just sort of, the legs look pretty good. You can actually use these, and we could model our own dining table out of this, in fact. And this is sort of like a hybrid solution where we model some part and other parts are not. So I'm just going to take this filleted rectangle. Go back to my shaded mode. And then I can make that like a glass material. Surely there's a glass in here somewhere. There we go. Alright, and then I can materialize these as well. So I could give these like a, is there a timber? What about wood? I'm just searching the library that's already in here. Bamboo wood. Okay, I'd need to remap it. Can I remap it? I could if I exploded it. But you can see how you end up with a bit of a hybrid of, you know, download a model and your own model. That's very common. You'll get really good results that way. But it's, you know, a very quick sort of crash course on, you know, bringing in external models and then cleaning them up and putting them inside of Rhino for use. So let's just summarize that workflow and exactly what to keep in mind when using external models and bringing them into your Rhino model. All right, so let's recap the external modeling suggested workflow. So as follows, you're going to download your external model, whatever that may be, a fridge, a TV, a sofa, whatever that may be. You're then going to open up your sandbox Rhino file. You're going to create a testing ground file, a blank file, whatever you want to call it. I just tend to call it a sandbox file, but it's separate to your main project file. You're then going to use the import command and then find your model and just select OK. And then select OK again on any of the import options, as 99.99% of the time, you don't want to touch those. You then want to select that imported item to an empty space in your model so you don't accidentally select anything else in your scene. You then want to explode and explode it again, and then you want to ungroup it and ungroup it again. Be wary that if it is a high polygon count model, you may get a warning saying that this may take some time. It's always a good idea to continue to save your file, particularly before you import your next item. So if I finished importing my sofa and I'm about to import a fridge, hit save on my sandbox file, so that way if anything corrupts or anything dies, we've got a backup of it. So once we're done ungrouping and exploding, I'll create a new layer, because most likely that model that I imported just defaulted to layer 0. So if it's an oven, I'll create an oven layer. If it's a sofa, I'll create a sofa layer, etc. I'll then select those items and then right click on the layer and say copy, or sorry, not copy, but move object to that layer. I'll then regroup that model, those items, and then just double check, turn off the layer, make sure it's all nice and clean and that everything's on the correct layer. And then it's as simple as just copy and paste into the project model with that selected, cleaned up model ready to go. So some external modeling tips, just recapping those as well. Keep an eye on your polygon count. You want to make sure that for anything that's complex, you want to keep it under 100,000 polygons. And by complex, I mean like a car or a person or a tree or plants. But for most of your items, I would keep them under 1,000. Again, for instance, this Samsung oven, which is an extremely effective model, only has 159 polygons. So you can find high quality models if they've been modeled well for well under 1,000 polygons. The same applies for your file sizes. So 40 megabytes for a complex item. So again, a car or a big tree, nothing more than 40 megabytes. Again, very rare you want one tree. You may want one car, but you probably want at least a couple of trees. And that's going to be very, very heavy. Having said that, in this assignment, you don't need any vegetation. But again, in your other assignments, you may want to put in trees. And again, for smaller items, you want them under 5 megabytes. So again, appliances and furniture. Arcing back to this Samsung model, I mean, you can see it's only 295 kilobytes. So if you can keep it under a megabyte, your model will be really easy to navigate. So you want to download the oldest version of the SketchUp file possible. If it's 2022, that's fine. But if you have access all the way back to 2019, then save it as that. Just so that way you know there's less chance of any bugs or any glitches in that model file. Save your sandbox model as well for use later on. It can become sort of the basis as a library. You will have so much of a better time when you're doing your design class next year and you're going through that and you're like, I need a quick sofa, I need a bed to stick in there and a car to put in the driveway, and you already have all that stuff there in your sandbox model. It will save you literally hours, and because they're nice high quality models that you've already cleaned up and put on the correct layer, it will really return good on your investment. Stick with good modelers as well. So remember the workflow I went through just previously, where if you find a good model, you can find more from the same authors, and that's always a good tip because it just means that it's expedient in your time rather than going around searching for multiple good quality models that are high res, low polygon, low file size. If you find a good one, go through their library and see what else they've got, and just download them so you've got them for reference later. Again, when dealing with design models, simplicity is usually king. When we look at items such as this marble fireplace here with the built-in entertainment unit, when we investigate it, it's just a set of boxes. It is quite literally just boxes with some Boolean differences and some materials associated to it, in conjunction with just a flat Samsung TV with nothing on the display. It's just all modeled black, and a nice little golden lamp which I just downloaded from 3D Warehouse. It gives a it gives a pretty unique effect, or a pretty effective effect, I should say. But is just a method of just modeling boxes. And you'd be used to modeling stuff far more complex than this now that you've gone through your kitchen and your joinery and model that in a bespoke fashion. The other items are stuff like items such as what's it called? It would be our paintings. So artwork and paintings, you can sit around for hours looking on 3D Warehouse looking for artwork that you like, but honestly, it is actually just much, much quicker to create them. So the method to do so is incredibly simple. If we look at this canvas here, it's quite literally one extrusion around the outside, which has just been given a timber material for the frame, and then another extrusion on the inside, which is just got a canvas, a painting that I like, that I've just applied as a material. It doesn't really matter whether the whole painting is in there or not. I just move the UVW map or the texture mapping to suit the needs of that painting. The same thing goes for this piece of artwork in the hallway. The way that is done is very similar, where I've got, they're just extrusions, that's all they are. So I've got an extrusion with a box in the middle, which I have Boolean difference to give me my surround, just a piece of paper or another box in the middle, which I've just applied this image to. And then I have another box around the outside, which is my frame. And then it might be hard to see here, but I actually just have a very thin box, or really it could just be a plane that is glass that sits over the top of that. And the reason why I've done that is because you will see reflective effects when it's in direct sunlight or when it's in the direct studio light, and it gives a pretty efficient special effect. So that's the paintings and the picture. and some of the just internal entertainment unit. The last one is my skirting boards and how I've modeled these. This is actually a very simple process as well. What I might do is I'm just going to come across to another area. I'm going to get rid of my topography. I'm just going to model something up really quickly. So I'm just going to go polyline. I'm on my default layer. Do something like that. Offset that 100 mil. And then I'll just close that up. Okay. Select it all, join. Okay, so I now have just a generic wall here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to a front view. And in my front view, I'm just going to take a polyline. And I'm just going to model up with project turned on. I'm just going to model up my skirting board. So my skirting board's pretty tall in that model. I'm going to go 250 high. And then come out. And I might come out, say, just 20 mil, just for round numbers. And then come down. And I might come down, say, 50 mil. Go inboard 5 mil. And then I'll go down 10 mil. Out 5. And then come all the way down to the bottom. In fact, I could do that again if I wanted to. I could go another 50 mil. And then repeat the pattern again. Sometimes smart track is actually much more painful than it needs to be. Alright, now I'll come to the bottom, finish that off. This is where I do need smart track, where it guides me. Okay, that looks good. And then what I'll do is I'll just fillet this off up here. So go fillet, I don't know, it's 20 mil, so I'll make it a radius of 15. Yep, perfect, something like that. Alright, excellent. Let's go to my perspective and let's just find that object. I'm going to turn off project and I'm just going to move this back towards the wall. Okay, so I'll go like this. And I'll rotate that. And then just move it to there. Make sure I get corner to corner. Okay, so we have something that looks like this at the moment, okay? Now, we're going to wrap it all the way around these walls in one go. And you could probably guess what the command's going to be. It's just going to be sweep 1. But I'm going to use the walls as my edges to chain. So I'm not going to draw the rail. I'm going to use the bottom of the wall as my rail. So I'm going to go sweep 1 and select rail. I'm going to say chain edges and then I'm going to start clicking away. So I'll go, yep. And I'm just going to pick the bottom of the extrusion, just hitting select on that edge. Okay, that's now done. And I mean, I can even wrap it around an item as small as like the thickness of the wall as well, like that. Okay, and then I'll go enter, and then I want to sweep this profile we just drew, and then say enter, and enter again, and okay. And there we are. I might just cap that off. Okay. Rendered mode, and there's that skirting board. And you can see even around these edges, look at that, perfect. And even around the edge of the nib of the wall, just there, works out perfectly. Now that's just one way of, that's sort of just one profile, but that's what I've done in here. To give that effect around this skirting board and how it wraps around right next to the kitchen as well. That's all it is, and I've just given it a timber texture, which can be quite effective. It's not something compulsory. It depends on whether it works for your design, but actually it definitely I think it actually brought something to my design. Just broke up, I guess, just the white sheets of the wall and gave a little bit more warmth, and I guess sort of ties back some sort of texture or color or tone back to the kitchen cabinetry as well. All right, and then lastly is our light materials and our lights and how they work. So these lights are modeled by me as well. All they are is it is quite literally just a revolve, and then I've punched a hole using Boolean difference into the ceiling. Now it's up to you whether you want to do that. These items like skirting boards, pictures and artwork, even the fireplace, as I just alluded to before, and lighting, especially when it's just can lighting, either down lights or like hanging can lights or something like that. Even track lights. It's not worth trying to sit there on 3D Warehouse trying to find those items, because you'll find you may find them, but they'll never be perfect. They'll never be to the perfect size you want. And in the instance of a downlight, yeah, you could find one, but I guarantee you it will be like a couple thousand polygons and like a megabyte big. And so you put 40 of these in there, there's 40 megabytes right there. That's the same size as that Mercedes that we picked out before. But if you model it, it'll be something like 1 kilobyte, and you'll be able to model them in multiple instances. And there's not much complexity that goes into them. So if I go back to my shaded mode, and I'm going to go to a front view again, I'm just on my default layer. I'm just doing this just for argument's sake, but same deal, right? So I'll just take a polyline, and we're going to draw one side of the downlight. So I might draw a downlight that's, say, I don't know, 120 long. And then I'm going to come across, let's say 40, because you're drawing one half, you see, and then come up to here. And then I'm just sort of just eyeballing this now. There's no rhyme or reason here. Okay, something like that. And then what I might do is just take a circle, start in the middle, and just do something like that. And then use the trim command, and then just trim these up. So it looks something like that. And I will join that. And then let's use the revolve command. So I'll go to my perspective view, zoom select, and then I'm going to go revolve. These are the curves I'd like to revolve. The axis is from this point up to here. And I would like that, yep, like so, 360, and there we go. So we've got like a down light, and you can see, because I did that semicircle, you got like the relief of where the globe will be. And then I just materialed that in a black color. Now, it's up to you. You can have that semi-recessed into your ceiling, so you got like a downlight, or you can have that stuck to the underside of a ceiling to give you like a can light. And if I wanted to make this say like a track light, just move it on an angle like that, and then all I would do is go to my top view, just take a box, and I'll model something. I'll make sure it projects on so I don't cook anything. I'm not sure what's going on there. That's a bit annoying. Let's try that one more time. And I'll just take a couple of these lights as well. I'm just copying these across. And then I could just rotate these slightly. So this one I'll make 30 degrees. That one I'll make minus 15. So I'm just making them sort of random in their turn. Something like that. Go to my front view. There it is. I'll make that much, much smaller. And do something like that. Make it all black, and then just stick that at the bottom of the ceiling. I'll turn off project, that's probably not helping. Something like that. And that's a pretty effective track light, you know, and I could do some like, I could model some hangers, so it's sort of sitting up like that, and I can model that individual hangers. But I mean, that's a very easy technique using two commands, using revolve and extrusion. Add some materials and then stick it in there and just move it to size. It's a pretty effective visual. So there's no need to sort of overcomplicate those sorts of models. Now, with that in mind, let's run through essentially a bit of a summary of what we've gone through, but more importantly, what you have to do now before we then go through our final component of the assignment, which is to save our views and then finally bring them into Photoshop and do some post-production work before sticking them on a title block. So in summary, in this workshop, we've covered the process of sourcing and adding external models into your Rhino project model. We've gone through the process of creating bespoke model items such as lighting, paintings, entertainment units, and skirting boards. These items are usually where simplicity is king, and you modeling them yourself is not only easy but expedient compared to searching for comparable models on the web. So from this point onwards, what you're to do is to contextualize your model, fit out your model completely, and that includes the kitchen, dining, and lounge spaces. It also includes one bedroom and at least one bathroom. You want to avoid adding people. There's no requirement to do so. And you also want to do the same for vegetation. There's no need to add vegetation. You can do so in later classes next year or whenever else you feel like it. However, for assessment task 3, it is actually a part of the key criteria, adding people, adding vegetation within Photoshop. It's a different skill set. So it kind of saves you a bit of time there too, the hassle, and also it saves on significant model sizes. So the next component now is once you have finished all of this, you are done in Rhino. The next step is to save our files, our raw renders, and then we'll then move into Photoshop for our final post-production work. With everything now complete in Rhino, including all your architectural or base building modeling, all your entourage, specialty equipment, materials applied, blocks and groups made, you've cleaned up your model, and you've finally got all your views set up, it's time to give them one final adjustment and export these views out, ready for post-production work in Photoshop. So, alright, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I've got my model cleaned up, background is off, reference plane's off, my ceiling should be turned on, which it is now. Entourage, I'm going to turn that on because my car's outside. No section, no clipping plane, everything else looks good. Okay, we're good to go. So first things first, my interior shot is here, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to clean this up just a smidgen. Okay, so that looks good to me. I'll just move that forward a little bit. Okay. Alright, so once we're done, I'm going to update that view as well. Make sure that that's good to go. Interior 1, would you like to update it? Yes, please. Okay, now that's done, I'm going to use the command view capture to file. So when you type in view capture, there'll be one to clipboard and one to file. We want to choose view capture to file. It's a really fancy way of saying essentially take a screenshot. So I click on that and it gives us a preview of what that's going to look like. Interior 1, do we want the grids on, world axes, transparent background? Doesn't really matter. Transparent background, we can turn that on and it will do this for us, which is fantastic. So the sky won't come out, but it will save us a wealth of time inside of Photoshop. I'm going to do one with a transparent background and one without. So start without. The size is going to be the viewport, but we can change this to whatever size we like. And I would use some sort of standard size. So viewport, I'm going to change that to 1920 by 1080. And that should be good. All right, that's perfect because we want it in a standardized HD size screen. I'll say okay, and it's just going to prompt me to where I want to take this out. So So I'll go here, go to our class for today, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call these raw output. Okay, sounds good. And then this one will be section 1. And then I think, well, I'll just do section 1. I think that's the one with no background. I can't remember now. All right, so that you can see image successfully saved to my D drive. And let's do that again. View capture to file. It will remember the last one I did. So yes, okay, that was the transparent background. So I'll turn off the transparent background. It still has the same resolution of 1920 by 1080, so it's HD. Click OK. I'll find that same file again. Where was that? There, raw output. Okay, and then we'll call this one section 1, and this one will be with background. Now you'll notice that the one without a background saved as a PNG file, and we need that, right? Because PNG files, remember, they don't save a white background like a JPEG does. So I'll say okay, that's now saved, and let's just open up my File Explorer and take a look at those raw renders. Beautiful. So the raw render, yep, that's great, and it's got the black background, so it means that that's going to save us so much time. And the section 1 with just a JPEG, that's fine, no problems at all. Looks good. All right, let's keep going. I'll go interior 2. Don't mind that shot, not my favorite. That one's definitely not nice. What about the external shot? Yeah, it's cool. I've got the Porsche back there. In fact, I might flip that around just quickly. Here we go. That's better. All right, let's go again. So view capture to file. And same deal. I'm going to do one with a transparent background and one with a background. The reason for that is because I may want to mesh them together. I may want the sky from the one with the background, but then I want the ability to have some sort of selection filter that cleanly selects around the outside of the house. It will save a ton of time when needing to Photoshop backgrounds into the shot, especially vegetation, trees and whatnot. So again, this one will be exterior. Well, there is only one exterior, so I'll just call this one exterior. And I'll save this one as a PNG. And let's do it again. View capture to file. I'll turn on the background this time. And this one I'll save as a JPEG and call it exterior. So the ones without a background you save as a PNG. The ones with a background save as a JPEG. JPEG is always a lighter file type too, so it's worth your time doing so. And then you'll go through and do the same thing with your interior views, your bedroom. Maybe you prefer that external view. What's that interior shot? Okay, of the bedroom. That's a section shot. That one may be not too bad, but ultimately it's up to you. The assignment calls for 2 interior shots, 1 exterior. The 2 interior could be one of your open living space, one of your bedroom, one of your open living space, one of a hallway, one of the open living space, or maybe a bathroom, and then 1 external shot as well. That's the key criteria. However, if you want to experiment and do more, by all means, do as many as you like. A tip for you, that the less you see in the background, the easier it is. So take this shot that's currently on screen. Because there's no glass here, there's no exterior, I can Photoshop some people in there pretty easily, and this could be maybe a 3rd or a 4th render. It'd be really quick. But the sectional shot in particular, that will take a little bit extra time because there's so much content outside. However, this is by miles the best of the internal shots. So I fully recommend that you do one of these shots. And then experiment with some of the others. Like I said, one of these, this would be very quick and easy to do, yet very effective. Same with like a hallway shot. But then the bedrooms, there's a little bit of external there through the glazing, but not a great deal, not a great amount. So with that now done, we are completed inside of Rhino. You are done. The next step is to open up Photoshop and go through that post-production workflow, which a lot of the commands will come back to you pretty quickly from our assessment task 2. However, the application is just slightly different here in that we haven't got any colors to select and copy and paste them into color zones. This is much more of, I guess, a free sort of matte painting workflow that we're going to apply here.